Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is inhibit, and this verb was suggested by the viewer Hassan Mohammed. Hassan Mohammed, thank you so much for sharing this suggestion. Now, let's take a moment and review some of the definitions or ways that we can use this verb. The first way you may encounter the verb inhibit can mean to hinder, restrain, or prevent an action or process. As I looked for examples of this verb being used in as many different settings and places as I could, one thing I saw again and again was this verb being used in connection to medical testing, particularly looking at potential new pharmaceuticals or new medicines to treat cancer. And so many were looking for things that prevent cancer growth or that prevent cancer from spreading. That might be a really good way to connect that first definition. Now, the first definition is not just about medicines or new treatments, but anything that would hinder, restrain, or prevent some kind of action or process will fit here. A second way you might encounter the verb inhibit can mean to prevent or prohibit someone from doing something. So a little bit similar here in that we've got prevent being used to help explain that, but now we're focused on someone not being allowed to proceed with an action. A third way you may encounter the verb inhibit can mean to make someone self-conscious and unable to act in a relaxed and natural way. So with this third definition, what we might be thinking of someone who maybe is acting in more of a shy or restrained kind of way. They don't want someone to see how they normally act. It might be because they're trying to create a good impression. It might be because they lack confidence. Could be a number of different reasons here. But for now, you should know that inhibit is a regular verb. If you want to make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms inhibiting. The past tense and the participle form of our verb can be made by adding ed. Now, this base verb, inhibit, ends in a T sound. This means when I add the ed ending, I'm going to make an id sound. And I'm going to add an extra syllable to the verb when I pronounce it. The past tense and the participle form of our verb should sound like this. Inhibited, inhibited. Now, you may encounter a phrasal verb as you read or hear this being used, and so we'll talk about those. The first that you might encounter is to inhibit something from. And this can be used in a couple different ways. So it might mean to prevent or keep someone from doing something. An example of this could be, the thunderstorm inhibited city children from trick-or-treating last week. So here, the children could not go outside, go door to door, asking for candy because of the severe weather. A second way to use inhibit from can mean to prevent or keep something from happening. An example of this could be, how can we inhibit anyone from getting sick in the next 2 weeks? So here, maybe we've got a group of people working together on a very time-sensitive project, and they need everybody to stay healthy and be able to work a great deal. And so that's what is maybe being worried about when someone utters a question like this. Now, I do want to note, sometimes as we look for examples of this, you continue to see the word prevent being used to help explain ways to use inhibit, it's far more common, I think, that to see that particular verb being used. But so I think you might hear people say, how can we prevent anyone from getting sick? Might not be quite as common to hear inhibit here, but still good examples. Now let's continue to use our verb of the day inhibit, and we'll review a couple verb tenses now. Today, we're going to review the simple present and the present perfect. Let's start with the simple present. We use this verb tense to talk about habits and routines. We also use it to discuss facts. And this is a verb tense where we need to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, you, we, or they, then in the affirmative or a positive sentence, you just want to use the base verb. So no suffixes, no special endings. However, if your subject is he, she, or it, then you should add an S to the end of this verb. And you can see that in my example here. A chemical used in plastics inhibits snails' ability to reproduce. Now, this sentence, again, came from a scientific article. Excuse me. And here, this was the conclusion. So this sentence is, I think, trying to communicate a fact that a particular researcher found from his or her studies. Something that can be a little confusing here. A chemical is our subject here. Some people see that S on the end of plastic, so they think we have a plural, but really it's a singular subject, and that's why you see an S on the end of the verb. So a chemical is like it. Now let's talk about making a negative sentence in the simple present. Again, we've got to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, you, we, or they, we'll use do not and then the base verb. But if our subject is he, she, or it, then we'll use does not and then the base verb. You may also encounter the contractions don't and doesn't. Here's another example. Rainy and humid days don't inhibit the dog's ability to detect hidden drugs. Again, this was another sentence in an article talking about using or training canines to search for illegal drugs, and talking about what factors may prevent them from being able to work. And here we have a fact that the temperature is not impacting or influencing or preventing them from being able to do this work. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple present. To do this, I start with either do or does, whatever form matches our subject, that comes next, and then you'll see the base verb. I always like to point out to students, notice I'm not adding an S to the end of the verb in the negative or in my yes or no question. Here's another example. Does this supplement inhibit cancer growth? So again, this was something I saw many examples of in, of course, more scientific or health-related articles. Now, let's move on and talk about making sentences in the present perfect. We can use this verb tense in a couple different ways. One way to use it is to talk about something that occurred at an unknown point in the past. So this is different than just the simple past tense. That's when we know or have a definite time in mind. But we can also use the present perfect to talk about an action that started in the past and continues into the present. To make sentences in the present perfect, we need two parts, and hopefully those two P's in present perfect can help you remember we need two parts to make our verb. We're going to be using a present form of have. We have two forms of that, so we'll pay attention to our subject, and then we'll be using the participle form of a verb. If our subject happens to be I, you, we, or they, we'll use have and then the participle. But if our subject is he, she, or it, then we use has, and our participle form the verb. Let's make an affirmative example, and I'm noticing I've got two negatives here, but we can still work with this. So in the affirmative, we might say, working remotely has inhibited our team from producing fantastic results. So this would be like that has prevented, right? That would have a very negative sort of result, probably. Supervisors, directors, what have you, would be saying, okay, everybody come back into the office. We need to produce better results. Now, if you want to make a negative present perfect sentence, again, pay attention to your subject. You'll use either have not and then the participle, or has not and then the participle. Here's another example. Language barriers haven't inhibited anyone from applying because our interviewers are multilingual. I saw a statement in a recent newspaper article from a company really trying to get word out that strong English skills weren't necessary for this particular role, and in fact, it wouldn't even be necessary in terms of interviewing and applying for a job. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the present perfect. To do this, we'll start with have or has, then we'll have our subject, that comes next, then the participle form the verb. Here's my last example. Have budget cuts inhibited the government's response to natural disasters? Again, we would look at that idea of restraining or preventing. Maybe there's just not the resources to send the help that's needed. Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb inhibit. The first word we'll look at as the noun form of this word. The noun form is pronounced inhibition. It can have a couple meanings similar to our verb. The first way to use this noun is to talk about a feeling that makes one self-conscious and unable to act in a relaxed and natural way. An example of this might be, alcohol makes many people lose their inhibitions. So here, what we're talking about, right, is people are no longer concerned, or maybe they don't have such great control over themselves. So they are acting in a more relaxed, maybe sometimes too relaxed kind of way. A second way to use the noun inhibition can mean to the slowing or prevention of some type of process, reaction, or function. An example of this in a sentence could be, to teach your puppy bite inhibition, start by never using your hands to play. So here we're talking about the prevention of an animal biting humans, or maybe even other animals as well. That is the process that is trying to be prevented. Another word you might encounter is the noun inhibitor. This is referring to a thing which inhibits someone or something. So again, we're back to that prevention of something. So an example of how you might hear this use. The tumor inhibitor is now in clinical trials. Well, this is likely talking about some type of medicine that will prevent or maybe slow the process of a cancerous tumor growing and or spreading. One last word for us today. It's the adjective inhibitive. This is describing something that is acting to restrain, hinder, or prevent something. An example of this in a sentence might be, the metal sculpture has an inhibitive coating that should prevent corrosion. So here we know exactly what it's trying to prevent. And so that's kind of like the metal discoloring, kind of breaking down. That's what's being described in that sentence. Thanks again to Hassan Mohammed for suggesting today's verb. I thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.